It's that now the Twins and about 25 of the 29 other teams are like, we just want our best hitters at the top of the lineup. And we don't need the guy to set the table when the guy can clear his own table. When Byron Buxton is at his best, which we're fortunate to have seen almost this entire year, other than a 2-week break. When Byron Buxton is playing at the peak of his ability, there are just so few guys in baseball, but certainly in Twins history, that can do the things he can do, even one of the things he can do. And the fact that he can do all of it, and the fact that he's rolling to this extent right now, it's a little sad because the rest of the lineup is not doing him, not doing him any favors. Right. So I worry a little that what he's doing is getting kind of lost in the shuffle, but he's thriving at the top of that lineup. He volunteered for the leadoff spot a few weeks ago when they were struggling, or a little longer than that, maybe, when they were struggling to figure out, we don't really have a traditional leadoff guy. Baldelli said that Buxton basically came up to him and said, put me in the leadoff spot. I like doing it. And
it's interesting going back, especially for those of us who have been watching Buxton, come up through the minors and, cut his teeth with, underneath Molitor and that sort of thing, where everybody assumed he was going to be sort of the ultimate leadoff hitter for this team for years at a time. And he didn't really develop into that type of player. He developed into a slugger hidden inside of a sprinter's body, right? But, to see him now at the top of it's just been so long waiting for this. It's been such a long, frustrating wait. I don't blame people for disparaging or for giving up on seeing what they're finally seeing, or not recognizing this is what they wanted to see 10 years ago when the comps were coming up and he was the number one prospect in the minor leagues. And everybody was like, well, boy, we could really have something special here. It's been, 6, 7, 8 years of waiting for this to happen because injuries, right? A lot of injuries were happening, and it was a real frustrating period. It was a real frustrating period for him. Like we saw him at spring training, the week, not last spring training, but before the 2024 season. And you finally got a sense of how frustrating 2023 and 2022 had been for him, how much pain he had been playing through when you saw him pain-free going into the 2024 season.
Right.
And now we basically, it's a little bit dampened by the fact that he spent, 4 to 6 weeks on the IL last year with a strained hamstring. So I can't just say, listen, he's been perfectly healthy for 2 years, but he's been a different kind of healthy for these 2 years than he was ever beforehand. There has not a chronic condition that he is dealing with that he dealt with for, prior to this thing. And to see this him going just crazy and frankly getting better. Like he seems to be getting better the further away he gets from these injuries, to the point, and it's easy to say when he's on a tear like he is right now, but he is doing everything. In that Seattle series, he showed he wasn't showing as much of the power, although I think he did show a little power there, but he was also just coming up in clutch moments, getting on base, stealing bases, and the tying run or the deciding run was being he was creating it by himself on those base paths. And now we're going to be able to see him do it. Now we're seeing him do it, for a team that really, really has trouble playing from behind, for him to come out and give them the instant lead in 2 of these last 3 games has been remarkable.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, you would expect someone who's further removed from a chronic knee injury that was solved by multiple surgeries,
right,
to start to look better. Yeah. I think the thing I would say, and you're seeing that with like the plate discipline, which he's showing more of that than he really has ever, which is an interesting way to get on base for a guy who's got that much speed. Right. I think it's also funny, you mentioned like Molitor tried to pigeonhole him into the leadoff spot because he was so fast, but he had a horrible on base percentage. I would say he didn't really change. Baseball's viewpoint of the leadoff spot changed. Right. Now baseball's view, baseball wide, and the number 2 spot in the lineup too. We talked about this over the years. Used to be the leadoff guy was your fastest guy. The number 2 guy was like a bunt him over type of Nick Punto, Matt Tolbert. Yeah, right. Well, now the leadoff guy can hit for power. The number 2 guy is usually your best hitter. And so it's not that Byron Buxton is so much better of an on-base threat now, although he is showing over the last few weeks signs of becoming that. He still doesn't have a great on-base percentage. It's that now the Twins and about 25 of the 29 other teams are like, we just want our best hitters at the top of the lineup. And We don't need the guy to set the table when the guy can clear his own table. That's the worst.
Right.
There's our first bad analogy on YouTube, by the way. First of many. Expect to see
That's
lots
right.
of that.